Okay, now we're building the foliage on top. We've got the body kind of worked out. We haven't cleaned up the legs yet, but we don't need to yet. And now we're going to see how much we can cover with this foliage and how messy it can get. It's a little complicated because there's so many different undercuts to these forms. And so many different interesting textures to use. Right now I'm just doing the loose cutouts. But I don't want it to look like just an ordinary deer. I want it to be a fantasy creature. And so I need this element, I think. Sink that behind. Yeah. All right, then I have a few others I can use if I need them, and I have coral. I even have a weeping willow that I can change the color of if I need to, and I've got these, which are very detailed little, oh, let's bring that one in. This will be my foreground one. This is a very large reference. Organic forms work well together. Oops. Turn auto select back on, try to keep me out of trouble. Okay, so now, whoops, I've got a lot going on here. How do I make this all work, and how do I selectively put it around those antlers, like draping off those antlers? So I'm going to work one layer at a time. Try to clean them up, turn off these others. And then it might be smart to put them all in their own folder. So I'll call this the foliage. And mark it red. It's obviously red. Now move that whole folder up above everything else. But now just start with this and start cleaning it up. Now I'm not going to be able to just use an eraser and do all of that perfectly. So I'm going to rely a lot on this magic wand and contiguous. And first I'm just holding down Shift. And the reason I have contiguous checked is I don't want it all the green pixels in this, because there's green within here that make it look believable. It's not all just red and yellow. So I need to be able to control where I'm selecting, especially right at the edge. And when that happens, I just hit Command Z, and it selects from the tip of that magic wand, that little starburst shape at the end. And you can play with different tolerance levels. 32 has always been kind of the default. It's about 1/3 tolerant. Seems to work pretty well, but in certain circumstances you'll want to open that up bigger to allow more to be selected, or close the gap. And ones I'll often use are 32, 22, 12, and then when you just want no wiggle room at all, basically, for your selection, I'll use a tolerance of 2. If your tolerance is too low, though, and you're doing what I'm doing, then it really breaks up your shapes. You don't get a nice contained selection. And then when you hit delete, you end up with lots of little debris, lots of leftovers you need to take care of. It's okay to have a few of those, especially if they're not close to the edge. They're easy to take care of. But close to the edge, you want it to be pretty smooth and understandable. Okay, now instead of just hitting delete, I can take my eraser at 100% opacity with a soft edge, right? And I can erase away. And then I can kind of see how sharp or how much is left of stuff I don't want. I'm going to show you another selection trick here, which can be helpful in doing these big batches. And I can keep adding to my selection. So I go back to the magic wand, hold down Shift, keep adding to it, cut it out. Wherever I touch down, it's finding within a tolerance of 32 shapes that are similar, or colors, pixels that are similar. But I've said the problem with this tool is it always cuts out really sharp, right? And for this to be the foliage hanging off the antlers, I think of it kind of as shedded fur. You know how antlers kind of peel their skin. So I don't need it to be as sharp as flowers really are. I could stand it to be a little softer. Waiting for my selection to catch up with me. So what I'm going to do is click on this option up in the Magic Wand tool, which is called Refine Edge. And this is a very tricky tool, but it can be extremely helpful. So the radius is how many pixels do I want the selection to play with. And I'm going to push it up to about 5 pixels. Okay, and then I'm going to turn on Smart Radius, which means if it goes into a narrow gap, it should lessen the number of pixel radius proportionally. Do I want it to smooth out shapes? No, I don't. But I do want it to feather a little bit, which will mean it will, across about 2 pixels, it will gradate the edge. It will take the opacity down. So it's showing me what that selection looks like now. See, so it's going to take off that hard edge around. And then I've shifted the edge about 38% of those 5 pixels. So this is subtle. And I'm going to have it remember my settings. So now I say OK. And it can take a while to process. It's a complicated thing. And it will give me a selection. And then when I hit delete, it won't just be an all or nothing delete. It will be a gradated feathered delete. So you can see it there. Now I hit delete, and it feathers it. And if I hit it again, it will feather it even more. And that's a nice edge quality. And I got that without having to use my eraser at all. Right? Sure, there's a little bit of green in the cracks, but I think that's just fine. And now these stray pieces, I can just swoop around pretty easily now and get rid of. So that's how I'm going to cut out a lot of these flowers. They're on top of everything, so now I've got this nice cutout. Let's see, what is it not on top of? Oh, the buffalo hide. I need to move that buffalo hide down to my body and legs layer. Oh, that doesn't work. Let's move it up to the top of that layer. There we go. Actually, I'll just move it on top of head and horns. And then this as well, I need to move underneath. Back to there. Ooh, that's tricky. Which one do I like better? Kind of like that. So I think I'm just going to have to erase away from that layer a little. If I want to hedge my bets, I can make a duplicate of it and put a copy of it on top, and now I can be really free with my eraser. That's too free. Oh, that's actually kind of nice. It's very mottled. And I know I'm safe erasing because I have a solution I'm okay with underneath. Yeah, but I like that big clump of fur there. All right. So now this is on top. Now I can play with it, position it, transform it. It's a beautifully cut out element. Now if you're lucky, you can find elements in reference that designers provide that are already cut out and are PNG elements, that work. I wish a little bit more of the antler was showing, and I can even play with taking its opacity down a little bit. And instead of deleting my my flower, this is what I can do. I can select in the areas where I want the antler to be showing through. And I can add to that selection and maybe show another little bit here. And then I can go to that antler layer and duplicate that, just that selection, and then bring that above everything. So it's all about just knowing how these things fit together, what you can get away with. And now, because I have those antlers at the top, I can selectively erase from them. To make my shapes work. All right, some other flowers now. So showing that same trick again of selecting. I'm going to be pretty freewheeling here. So I've got my foreground element nicely cut out. I don't even mind some blurry reds in there. I'll do a quick delete now just to see what I have. Good time to save. Just keep adding with shift held down. And I might expand it to 62 tolerance. Speed it up a little bit because this background's a little bit more contrasted than the last one. I think after this I'll also crop it down to help the computer out a little bit. Okay, remember you can add different types of selection as well. At any time I can change from the magic wand to something else, like the lasso. And as long as I'm holding down shift, or if I want to delete from, I can hold down option. It will just keep working with the same selection. So in here, I want these little spiky things. So I'm going to do that with my lasso.